Okay, so let's get started. Last time we introduced the module and we introduced the power of digital business and why it's important that we learn more about it. And what we'll do today, we'll look into the idea of managing and really thinking about some key elements when it comes to the digital business. And those are the three ones. The first one is the outline on the range of hardware and software that you'll need to be aware of. Now, in general, when it comes to digital business, especially e-commerce, we always think about that last layer, which is the website, right? But just for the sake of getting a good understanding, let's sit back a little bit and get a sort of clear picture as to what happens behind the scene and which are some of the things that we need to be aware of. We're not going to dwell too much on it, but I believe it's quite important that we realize what's behind the scene and what are the things that we need to be aware of. So including the infrastructure and the software and the hardware layer as well. Then we will review some of the management actions needed to maintain service quality for the users on digital platforms. And then lastly, we will look into reviewing e-commerce digital platforms that allow us to prototype, or if you will, build up our own e-commerce stores of our own liking or of our own interest, right? So these are the three things that we want to cover today. So some of the key things to be thinking about. What are the practical risks to the organization on the failure to manage the infrastructure properly, right? And we'll look at those in a minute, and hopefully we'll be able to answer some of them. How should we evaluate alternative models for delivering web services? Right? Are off-the-shelf digital platforms viable for digital business? So, we will be talking about Shopify, Dicktail, Magento, and some others. Are they viable? Can we actually use them? Okay, so let's just get back a little bit and talk about the actual key element when it comes to the digital business. As I said, most times when you think about the e-commerce, you always think about that last layer, which is the actual website. But there's quite a lot behind the scene that does require lots of work. Therefore, whether you're managing it or getting involved with it, you need to be aware of other components that hold together that digital business, that e-commerce. Otherwise, you'll be missing the point. And therefore, by the end of this semester, I hope that you will be able to get enough knowledge in each component so then you can either go and do something of your own or get involved in improving or managing some business, right? So when we start to look at the first layer, very much it's about digital services when it comes to CRM and the supply chain management and data mining as well. So the first layer we're looking into is actually looking at the management of the data and the management of the connection with the supplier that you've got. In other words, when you start selling something online, it doesn't just happen like that, right? You've got to know who you're getting that products from, who are those people, right? What is the pricing you're getting it from, and how you're going to be shipping those products to customers that are buying from you, okay? We will have a lecture on fulfillment services, okay? But for now, let's just try and identify some of the key components. The second layer is that software layer, okay? And as I said to you earlier, the second layer is very much to do with web browser, service software standards, and also database management system, which means that, in general, most times, ourselves as consultants or as entrepreneurs on e-commerce, we will be mostly working around it, but from time to time managing communication with our suppliers as well. But of course, when you start to see, you will pick up most of these things when there is lots of testing being done around e-commerce. Which means that once a store is designed, what do? We actually spend quite a bit of time ensuring that the testing is done for every single page for the complete customer journey before it goes live. And that's when we test the browser compatibility. So how does an e-commerce site display its features depending on the browser? And trust me, different browsers behave differently. And therefore you might say, well, why that's important? Well, it's important because if something works really well in Explorer, right, it might not do so well in Safari, so you're missing out on those huge amount of visitors that are coming from a Mac platform, right? Or the biggest issues nowadays are with mobile platforms, right? And something that might be totally fine using on a desktop PC, it's a huge problem when it comes to the mobile, simply because it doesn't render really well, and most times it doesn't actually display or it doesn't load at all, right? So that's a key element to be thinking about. Then of course we've got the system, and of course database management systems as well. These are some of the elements that we need to be thinking about whenever we are either reviewing, redesigning, or trying to build something online. The third layer is very much the transport layer, of course the physical side of things. Now, we're not going to be ourselves involved to actually install these things and do these things, because this is mostly done by engineers who set up the infrastructure. We don't have to be worried about that. However, we need to know that this is a key part of delivering a digital business. The other one is, of course, the physical layer and the storage, which has got to be managed very, very well by everyone in the team. And then the final layer, the content and the data layer again, where we do what? We manage not just what we promote and share online, but also what we collect from customers. It would be great if you can try and come on time. That's right? Because you can see now you are disturbing everyone, including myself, because I have to talk to you and then I have to think back again what I was going to say. Okay, so it's quite good to really make an effort and be on time. Okay, so this layer is quite important because we work with this layer most of the time. What do we do with this? Well, it includes the design, it includes the customer data that we're collecting, it includes the customer journeys as well. All that data mining that we do is thanks to this layer in the e-commerce. Next, just quickly, the physical and network infrastructure components of the internet. Most of you know this, but just to remind you a little bit about some of the key things that you need to be thinking about when you think from the top level on the internet and the backbone to the local area network, which is land when it comes to the digital business. You need to know that whenever we access something online, right, it's not somewhere in the cloud, in that pretty nice cloudy thing. It's actually sitting in a computer somewhere, sitting in a warehouse, right? So there is a physical machine, super powerful physical machine holding that information, which is connected via the internet and actually allows us to have access to it. And it is one of the biggest investments done now by largest companies in the world, from Google to Apple to Facebook and other guys. They are building data centers around the world so that they can offer you the best service possible. And what they're also doing, some of them are actually selling some of their spaces in those physical and the digital stores that they've got, which Amazon is doing it with their web services. Again, if we dwell slightly deeper into service, of course we see three important parts in there, and those are transaction log files of customers, HTML graphic files that are saved in the server, and then database and application servers. And as I said to you, in general, you will not be involved with all of these things when you get involved with e-commerce. But it's really important to understand what's behind the scene, what's involved. So in the end, you'll understand that e-commerce is a lot more complex than we think. Next, domain name is that digital address. Okay? And just quickly, what do you think the .com stands for?
Commerce.
Commerce. .co.uk, extension for the domain names? Anyone? .co.uk?
How much in UK?
No. But a good try.
Cooperation.
What did you say? Is a country extension for domain names. .co.uk, .it Italy, right? .de Germany, and so on. Okay, so they are domain names extensions for the countries, right? And you start to see now that, of course, the most popular one is .com, and the reason for that is why.
What is the first one?
Well, it is the first one, but there's more to it. Can you guess why .com is so popular?
Doesn't designate a country. It doesn't designate a country.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other comment? Global, yeah, exactly. So it's a global thing, and therefore is indexed highly by search engines online. It's the oldest one that was mentioned earlier, which plays pretty good role when it comes to search engines, because search engines very much appreciate systems that have been around for a while. So if you set up a website today, right, you still need to do a lot of legwork before, scripts from Google or Bing come to visit you, right? You still need to build up your portfolio, if you will, of your publications before search engines decide to come and see you. And then you've got education, you've got international, net, biz, info, and government as well. So you need to be thinking about this as you think about the domain names and top-level domain names as well. Now, the domain name is what? A digital address where people find us. Not long ago, the way to get to a website, we had to do what? We had to write the number, the IP address, 11.3.4.6.5.6, right? Because behind the URL, there is an IP address that directs that sort of request to a specific server where we are hosting our stuff, right? But now, all of it is a lot easier. We don't even have to think about it, but again, something that sits behind it. Fragmented application infrastructure, that's something that we won't get into too much of details around it. But of course, for you to be thinking about that there are three very much key parts when it comes to application infrastructure. There's procurement and logistics, finance, all the payment data and all of that. And of course, one of the most popular ones, I would say, is the marketing, where we'll be spending some of our time as well learning more into details. Now, elements of digital business that require management. Well, in general, most of it will require management, and very good management, otherwise we'll be in trouble. But the client application is really important. Application and making sure that when things are integrated in an e-commerce site are very well managed. And if you get involved either in managing or setting up your own store, or working for a client, or opening up your own agency online, you will start to realize that one of the most important things is to have sign-offs for every part of the project you get done. Otherwise, the client will get you to change 100 times the work that you already agreed with. Yeah? So that part of the management is really important. And of course, when it comes to the management, there are several parts that you need to be thinking about, but we will be looking into more details when we look at the budgets as well and managing them. So, this leads us to what we call value creation when it comes to the e-business. What is the key values that e-business brings? Okay? And this is a model that was developed by Amit, and then of course modified by Dave Chaffee a while ago. But it just quickly gives us some ideas as to why this digital e-commerce is taking so much of attention, but also why it's having so much of a success. Well, some of these things are quite known to us, but it just needs to remind us of 4 key components. And the first one is complementarities, efficiency, novelty, and lock-in. Now, each and single one of these have played a huge role into the reason why e-commerce is where it is today. Of course, when it comes to efficiency, we know that. We can browse hundreds of products online without even moving ourselves from one chair to another. And if you wanted to do exactly the same thing with traditional type of, shopping, you'll have to spend days. Sometimes hours just in one shop and then getting into another one, and then before you realize you're tired and you haven't purchased anything. Because you haven't made up your mind yet. Whereas with digital, all you have to do is just click on the products you want to buy, compare each and every one of them, and then pick up the one that suits you the best. And by the way, before you do that, you'll just have a quick look and see whether you can get that thing cheaper on eBay. And in most cases, you probably are. Sometimes you get amazed, how come you buy something that costs £2 and you get a free delivery? Right? Where do those people make money? What do you think? If someone is selling you maybe an iPhone case for £3, right? And they give you a free delivery on eBay.
So you come back and shop there again and buy something more expensive?
Yes, but not all the time. What else? Why? How do you think these guys are sending you from York or from Europe? Sometimes free delivery, and you pay £3 for it. How do they do it? Sometimes $1.99. Stuff on eBay. And it's a free delivery. Say, of course. And if you go to your cheapest local store, like Asda, it'll still cost you £5. Right? And you've got to move, you gotta get out. You have got to stop whatever you're doing, whether it's your research work, and get out and get that thing. Whereas with eBay, all you have to do is just click, and they're quite good in trying to, get you to purchase with one click most of the time if you sign on eBay. Can you guess? Come on, think business. Think business, yes.
To guess that maybe their distribution centers are very close, so it doesn't actually cost them much to get you the product. And then secondly, they make their money on their advertising on their website, so that cost becomes minimal because they're already making a lot.
They do both of those things, but those are not the main reasons why they can sell it so cheaply. You're not wrong, they do make some money from those things and actually do identify the most efficient way, which in this case is Royal Mail, because it's cheaper than UPS, DHL, and these. And if you're a business, you go to Royal Mail and say, by the way, I'll be posting hundreds of things every day, you've got to give me a good deal and they'll give it to you. And they're quite reliable. Anyone else? Can you guess why?
Because they don't own the product. It's the seller is the seller is self.
For some it's true, for some it's true, which is, what is that called? Drop shipping? Have you ever heard of this term? Anyone? Drop shipping is very much you are selling a product that you don't have, but your supplier will ship it for you. Quite clever. And we can talk more about it in details if you like in tutorials, but it's quite an interesting model, and we can talk about weaknesses and strengths. Anyone else? Think business. It's nothing to do with technical, it's business. Come on. Business. Your business hats on. You have your business hats on? Yeah? Think numbers. Think volume. Right? Because some of these guys, if you go special on eBay and you look at these iPhone cases that cost £3, they sold 3,000-4,000 of these things. Now that makes a difference, right? Yeah, they're not making lots of money, but because they're selling it in high volume, that's where they're making the money. Which is exactly what Asda is doing, right? You know, they give you this form, Lidl and these affordable supermarkets, right? So you need to be thinking about those terms from time to time. Okay, next. Let's move on into some of the 6 components of e-commerce and online shopping quality. And according to research, but also according to some of the work that we're doing, they are the most popular ones to be thinking about. The first one, without a doubt, is security and privacy, right? Now, security is essential because, why? We're pretty much sharing everything that we've got in our lives, and thanks to Facebook, even more, right? And if you start to think about how much it's online out there now, you might freak out from time to time, but it's good, don't think about it. Because there's way too much info of ourselves out there, okay? But, you know, that's where we're going, okay? And the reason why it's so important for us to understand this is because once we have all this data of our customers, what do? We can tailor marketing activities that are relevant to them. So instead of wasting our time and our marketing budget, when we know really well what is that our customers looking for and what is a typical customer of ours, we then start to give them things that they need. You could argue that the biggest reason why we don't click on email newsletters, right, is because they're irrelevant to us. Okay? Sometimes you buy, let's say you buy a bike on Amazon. And Amazon keeps reminding you of other bikes. And every time you sign on their website, it starts to remind you of other versions, other makes of the bikes. And then you start to think, well, how many bikes do I need? I'm just going to need one. But what do I need now? I need accessories, right? So, if you've got a very intelligent process put in place, which Amazon has, because it's improving it all the time, well, it will actually start giving you relevant stuff. It's just things like, we noticed that you purchased from us a bike this size, blah, 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 and we thought you might like, if you haven't purchased already, you might like, you know, gloves and things and lights and helmets and things like that. And you say, and because you purchased the bike from us, we're giving you a 15% discount. Now you're talking. Now you've got a story that can really be convincing enough for the customers to get them to buy stuff from you. Now you'll be surprised that even largest players in the world today are not there yet with this. You buy a camera, Amazon will keep reminding you of other cameras. And you think, well, how many digital cameras am I going to buy? Right? So, it's not there yet, but you can see why it's important to have that content and know how to use it. Right? And so that's why that security and privacy thing, of course, plays an important role, but during that time we collect lots of data and information. What about design? Well, that links to this, because once we know who we're trying to serve, we will adapt the design to feed those needs. What I like to see on the pages I visit is totally different from what my dad wants to see. He probably doesn't care on the look. As long as he can click somewhere, add something to the basket and purchase, he's fine. Right? He doesn't care about YouTube videos. He doesn't maybe care much about reviews or something. If he wants something, he's just going to go, boom, click, add to basket, buy it, move on. But for people like myself and you want to see the feature, the spec, the reviews, the videos, everything you can. And even after doing all of that, you might still change your mind because, boom, you thought of eBay. Okay? And you're going to go, and for some reason, you will find it somewhere cheaper. Unless it's a branded thing and you will have to buy from that specific place. So the website design needs to reflect. So what we need to do, we need to learn enough. We need to have enough insights from customers, and we'll talk about it shortly, before we are able to reflect on that on design. Customer service, without a doubt, is evolving so much thanks to social media, mobile platforms as well. So again, through customer service, which in general companies do pretty bad job in cutting up their expenses, like cutting their phone numbers. And they say, oh, if you want to contact us, send us a request via this form. Well, sometimes you need to talk to someone pretty quick. So you need a phone number, but sometimes you can't find a phone number because it isn't there. And the reason why it's not there is because it's too expensive to run. But then that can have a pretty bad negative impact on customers, right? So it's something to think about. Personalization again. How do we make things more personal? Well, we do that because we know a lot more from customers, right? Why do you think so many companies nowadays, especially e-commerce, are asking you to do what? To sign in and create an account using Facebook. Here you go. Because they will get all the information you've got on Facebook and more. And all your friends, contacts in most cases. And you don't even think about it. You say, oh, click next, 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 because you just want to sign up as soon as possible, without realizing that that's actually what you're doing. You're giving them access to all your data, all your information. In general, it's not a bad idea, it's fine. But of course, you might even have, some of those people who want to do bad things, right? And pretend that they want to sell you something, or they'll get the details and information. Experiential, of course, when we play around with different features and different sort of like styles and design as well. Connection, how well and how fast a website speed loads. According to research, everything that takes more than 2 seconds to load, right, is going to really change our mind whether we want to shop there or not. Because the lives we live in are so dynamic. So, why do we have to be thinking about e-commerce management platforms? Well, the ones, especially the ones that allow us to build something quickly without the need to learn from code, are the following. Easy to use. You don't need to know any programming skills. You can get support throughout. You can integrate payments as much as you like. And at the same time, you can have very low cost setup, safe and secure and quick to create those. Let's just have a quick look at some of them. Magento is one of the largest platforms to create e-commerce sites in the world today. And just to give you an idea, last year, every year they organize conferences in Vegas, right? They end up having thousands of companies, not just individuals, companies from around the world that use those platforms. And you've got large companies from Paul Smith, Virgin Brands, and so on that actually, behind the scene, they're using Magento. Because it's super powerful. And these are the reasons why they are so big, and these are the reasons why they're so popular. I'm not going to get into the details, but to be able to run this, you really need to have a team of people that can actually change things and know a little bit of code. Okay? And one of the biggest things when it comes to Magento is that they have the largest community in the world. So not just the support you'll get from a company, but you'll get support from other people as well. Now Shopify is the second most popular one, according to some research, which allow us to set up our own e-commerce sites whenever we want. And the reasons why is because it's very simple, it's quite straightforward, it's as easy as setting up an email, and probably the very best way to learn and get an understanding about different parts of e-commerce is actually to set up the store for yourself. Okay? They used to offer to me the sign up for students for free. Okay, just so then you can experiment with things, but they're not doing that anymore. So now you'll have to sign up for it, but it's a 30 days trial, I believe. And then by the end of that time, you can cancel if you want. But it's quite a good idea to play around with it, because you learn so many things, from the theme, to the products, to catalogs, to the way you display them, to descriptions, to the payment, to the shipping, and everything else, customer support and so on. So there's so much you can learn, and that's the reason why I present some of these things. Now what do we need to consider? Well, you need to consider about optimizing websites, which means that making the websites findable by search engines. Making a website to be liked by Google is pretty important thing. If Google really likes you, then you've got business. If Google doesn't like you, then you're in trouble, right? So it's quite challenging to get into a relationship with Google, but if you do, then you've got good opportunity. In fact, if you go quite sort of deep into a relationship, and you get Google to fall in love with you, right? Because you've got so much exciting things happening in your website, then they will give you the traffic that you can't handle. And when you have so much traffic, that some of it means business. But of course, only if you know what you're doing when your customers are in your site, which we call inside customer journey. Now it's all good for the university to spend so much time and money in advertising courses, so then they can get you guys in here. But once you're here, can we deliver, right? So we need to be able to have process in place that as much as we say we will do in those conferences where we recruit you guys, we need to do exactly the same when you're here. And it's the same thing with the online, right? So knowing how to handle customers, of course, digitally is a big challenge. Now, these are some of the key things. Analytics will help us to learn more about how customers behave, really important, because once we know how do they behave, we start to be flexible and change things as much as we can. We launch our store once we have all those processes put in place. We explore customer services while running it. And we also improve our stores because we are able to install things on top of it to improve it as much as possible. And something you'll learn when you start playing around with it. Some of the key things, your site, especially if you started to experiment with Shopify, you start with your site, you start choosing 10 things you want to sell into 2-3 different product categories. You'll start writing a short description about each. Take a really good photograph, decide on pricing and shipping for each of them. Of course, you decide for the name of your business, right? And you'll set up your Shopify account and get Google accounts to track and analyze what you're doing online. Because if you can't measure, you can't improve. So it's absolutely essential that you have analytics put in place. And there's no other way to learn how well you do unless you have analytics put in place. Costs involved, this is pretty much what is involved, but more or less, with £40, you can actually have up and running an e-commerce site, which is a decent one and is quite good in most cases. These are some of the most popular Shopify stores that I picked up around. I'm sure most of you have heard of Angry Birds, right? And of course, if these guys choose Shopify as their e-commerce store, and they got all the money they need to build up, then there is something in there, I think. And of course, there is also Dicktail, one of the popular sort of iPad company that make iPad cases, and of course other companies as well. Dicktail is a slightly different business model, but these are a bunch of guys that decided in Europe to create a platform online that is totally free, and you can start your own online store at any time you want, and it's quite straightforward. I've got a video in there, but you can play at your own time whenever you want, but it's quite simple, it's quite straightforward. And actually, when you look at it, it's probably the simplest platform online to play around when setting up an e-commerce site. Some of the features that they have include quite a bit. And the reason, again, why we introduce these is because we want you to get hands-on things, right? And really learn how and what it requires to succeed when it comes to an e-commerce platform. In fact, I wish I could, make it a mandatory thing for you to actually create your own e-commerce sites. I can't do that, but I hope that most of you will go ahead and do that, because the very best way to learn, right, is to actually get your hands involved with these platforms and also get yourself going, because you learn, as I said to you earlier, about the design, the importance of design, importance of customer service, importance of navigation, display, and all of that, right? Because the biggest challenge online nowadays is what? Is the touch and feel. We can't touch things. And touching things is really important. I can touch this desk, I know it's good, right? But what I see online doesn't give me any idea unless you can give me a huge amount of information. Like a 360 degrees, right? A video, a review, and comments from other people who purchased a similar thing, or maybe an expert review. Because this is probably £1,000 or something. And I'm not just going to go and give away £1,000 just like that. So it's really important to use every single opportunity to convey that message of quality, design, and all of that. And that's really challenging. That's really, really challenging. And if you want to, even still today, you go and see websites whereby the photograph quality is quite poor. You can actually tell if it's brown or black. And you purchase it and you just realize, oh God, that's not what I want. So then you have to deal with it, deal with return and everything else, and just ruins that experience of yours for a digital business.